The end of every year is always a great opportunity to reflect back on the past year that was, while also setting some goals and looking forward to the year up ahead. I always use this opportunity as a chance to reflect, to contemplate, to think about how individual companies in the portfolio performed, and to also reflect on some of these key catalysts or growth drivers that might be up ahead on the roadmap. Today, I thought it would be interesting to have a bit of a discussion about 3 of my top stocks that I watched throughout 2021, reflect on the performance for the companies, some of their key achievements and highlights, and then also outline some of those key catalysts that they've still got in the pipeline moving forward into the year. Of course, these are my personal favorites, but everyone's going to have a different list for 3 of their companies that really took their attention in the past year. So drop in a comment below, let us know what was on the top of your watch list and which companies you're going to continue to watch and observe into 2022 and beyond. If you do enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. If you're new here, welcome. We make daily videos each and every day. So if you haven't yet, make sure you've subscribed, turn your bell notifications on, and you won't miss any of our daily episodes. Hope you've had an amazing end to 2021 and have an amazing new year period, and looking forward to the year that's up ahead. Stock number 1 on the list, it's Lake Resources. Of course, after the past year that we've had, with the initial price signal for the lithium sector in November 2020, and the continued move upwards not only of the commodity prices, but of course many of the juniors, the developers and the producers across the sector. Well, anywhere that you look, there was significant uplifts in terms of many of these companies, but most importantly as well, there's been a real fascination about this broader EV adoption. It started to pick up pace. Nations around the world are realizing the importance about this clean energy transition and this move towards decarbonisation. And many of the companies, not only in the lithium sector, but also the broader EV battery supply chain, stand to be beneficiaries if they can bring their projects online. So who is Lake Resources? They're developing their flagship Kachi lithium project. They actually have 4 lithium projects located within the lithium triangle. And at Kachi, they're deploying a direct lithium extraction process, in comparison to the commonly used lithium brine extraction evaporation methods that are used at some of the other projects in the triangle. They're leveraging Lilac Solutions' direct DLE process. And at the core, the final output that they're hoping to deliver is an ESG-focused high-purity battery-grade lithium product. Of course, as we look out into the next decade, we know that there is a supply shortfall that is forecast and likely to continue to grow as EV demand picks up pace, and there hasn't been a huge amount of supply coming on in the past couple of years because of the lower prices. But as time moves on and as this decarbonisation focus becomes more and more prominent, manufacturers and other producers are going to be looking for products that can help them bring down their embodied energy, and that's produced with that ESG lens. And Lake Resources are hoping to feed into that. As we go through this video, I'm keen to know your thoughts, so drop in a comment below which have been your top stocks, and a reminder that I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing we discuss on the channel is financial advice. Obviously, the stocks we cover are not buy recommendations, they're all just a general discussion to be that starting spot for you to do your own research from. And so ASX LKE, like many companies in the development stage of their process, have had quite a transformative period. In terms of the actual DLE extraction process, they've formally partnered with Lilac Technology, providing some visibility about that partnership. It's an earn-in partnership where Lilac Technologies have actually got the ability to earn in up to 25% of the Kachi project. They'll also be providing to their technology, they'll be helping to set up the on-site demonstration plant, engineering teams, as well as some financing as well. And of course, this was a big question about the Lilac technology and how the partnership would flow through. So I think this has gone some way to de-risking the project coming online. Along with that, Lake Resources DFS is underway. The Kachi DFS will be due in the first half of 2022. But there is also an additional drilling program that's now underway, and investors are waiting for results, up to potentially upgrading the project from 25,000 TPA to 50,000 tonnes per annum. As you can see here on the right, the scale, and obviously this is attracting a lot of ASX investor interest because of the possibility of the increased demand that this is speaking to. We also do know that there's now additional drilling programs underway for the other projects for Lake Resources. And something that is interesting to note that's just come to market over the past few days is actually Rio Tinto, one of the big global resource companies, has actually purchased the Rincon project, which is located within the Lithium Triangle. And it's a neighbor to Lake Resources projects as well. This is for over $1 billion AUD, $800 million US. And so what this is really speaking to is, of course, the focus from these resource companies to really get their footprint into or get an opportunity into these future-focused battery materials. And of course, it speaks to the prime location that Lake Resources have with some of their projects too. In terms of the financing side, Lake Resources is funded through to FID, final investment decision. They've got indicative expressions of interest for debt financing, and they also had quite an innovative capital raise, which is something for shareholders that gave the loyal long-term shareholders a bit of an opportunity to get involved as well. In terms of the 2021 performance for ASX LKE, what can you say? I mean, looking across the lithium sector, the ASX lithium sector had some real uplift, and Lake Resources was one of the true beneficiaries of this as one of the leading lights. The Lake share price is up over 1,000% year to date. It's absolutely soared upwards, but it's also speaking to the rapid uplift that we've seen in the underlying lithium prices as well. As a result of that, Lake Resources has actually got uncommitted offtake. They haven't actually signed any offtake agreements, and so they stand to be beneficiaries of this as they look towards inking offtake agreements in 2022, because obviously it gives them a bit more bargaining power as they haven't signed off that offtake. It's going to be fascinating to see where the lithium and the broader EV battery supply chain heads over the next 12 months and beyond, but ASX LKE truly has been a stellar performer over this past year. In terms of what to watch in the year up ahead, as we know, in the first half of 2022, DFS and of course the environmental and social approvals as well will be due, along with the 2022 potential expansion study up to 50,000 TPA. There is the additional drilling programs that are going on for the other projects that investors will be watching for. Demonstration plant as well, due in 2022. Of course, this is the next step towards development and eventually construction and then production. Then financing, if all goes well, contingent on success of the initial 2 stages, and then of course ultimately construction. And like I've stated, they're hoping to get into production for the initial stage by 2024. Stock number 2 on the list. It's ASX IMU. Imugene truly emerged as one of the leading biotechs on the ASX over the past year. They were recently included into the ASX 200. Their share price topped the $3 billion market cap level. And most importantly, they've really developed out and really continued to progress their clinical pipeline. They now operate under 3 pillars. They're a clinical stage immuno-oncology company. What that means is they're focusing on treatments that activate the immune system. They've got this stacked preclinical pipeline as well as an extensive clinical pipeline that continues to extend. And really underpinning all of their treatments as well is they have an extensive and long-dated IP patent portfolio, which goes out for the majority of the treatments out to 2037, 2038. And so trying to sum up some of the achievements and wrapping them all up together, I think first and foremost, of course, for a company in the biotech space has to do with the clinical progression. And Imugene had that in spades throughout the year. And that really did draw a lot of the investor interest in the IMU story. But in terms of some of the other achievements, there was the ASX 200 inclusion. Recently, there was a clinical trial supply agreement for a trial with Merck Germany as well as Pfizer. Big global names really partnering and obviously showing belief in terms of the treatments that Imugene have in the pipeline. There was recent FDA IND approval for Hervax and Vaccinia. We know about the robust tests and focuses and the amount of data and support that's necessary to get the IND approvals from the FDA. So this was a big tick in validation. And there was a range of collaborations with the City of Hope, with Cellularity and Eureka. And underpinning it, as we discussed as well, significant clinical progression. It's been a busy year for Imugene, and it'll be fascinating to see what the next year has up ahead. In terms of the share price performance, it was a breakout performance. You can see here over 300% up year to date. It has come off a little bit since the highs where it traded around that 60-cent mark, but still a truly breakout year for the ASX IMU share price. As mentioned, they're one of the leading ASX biotechs now. They're into the ASX 200, which obviously provides them with more visibility to a broader range of funds and other investors. So it's really a good leaping stone to move forward into the next year up ahead. And then in terms of 2022 focuses, of course, as mentioned, everything has to do with that significant clinical pipeline. They're going to have a range of studies into the clinic over the next 6, 12, 18 months, and this is going to drive a lot of the focus from investors. But in terms of a couple of more individual actual focuses, the onCARlytics trial will attract a lot of attention. There's been discussions about onCARlytics being that holy grail potentially and providing that universality of treatment. So there'll be a lot of eyes on that. And then the final OS data as well for Hervax, which the markets have been waiting for, and there's a lot of excitement to see those results come to market. Finally, as Imugene continues to collect more data and continues to progress, obviously commercial partnerships and discussions will continue to attract a lot of eyes and ears on that. As more data comes to market, it puts them in a better position to speak to those other organizations, to speak to Big Pharma or speak to other potential collaborations, and this will attract more and more interest as time goes on. As Leslie Chong, the CEO and Managing Director of Imugene, says, follow the science and everything else will follow in behind it. Keen to know your thoughts on it all. What were your thoughts on Imugene and Lake Resources year as well as BRNs? And where do you think everything's heading moving forward? And then stock number 3. It's Brainchip. ASX BRN have now developed currently the world's only commercially available neuromorphic processor. With what they have developed, it's a top-of-class technology that's currently first in class as well as best in class, though there is investment from other deep-pocketed competitors like your IBMs and Intels, but Akida currently is the only commercially available, and there have been talks from Brainchip that they believe they're at least a couple of years ahead of the other current companies that are trying to chase behind them. At its core, what Akida does is it provides ultra-low power, high-performance processing, leveraging spiking neural networks. So what this is processing is only spikes or anomalies instead of having to continuously process. This gives you your ultra-low power while still maintaining that high performance, and it means that you can facilitate this performance and processing at the edge. So away from the data centers, away from the cloud. It's better for security. Of course, it reduces the need for bandwidth and latency concerns, and it's going to be really the key focus for a range of different technologies moving forward. We know that Internet of Things technologies are going to continue to roll out. We know that wearables, drones, spaceflight, more and more of these more complex technologies are going to become more and more important over this next decade, and Brainchip believe that the Akida solution will be able to be one of these solutions that helps to facilitate this. And something that's important to note, even though the name is Brainchip, they will be producing chips. They have actually produced the first production run for AKD 1000. They do have a focus on an IP licensing model as well. They've got a range of team members with experience from ARM Holdings. Of course, ARM is one of the companies that truly have pioneered this IP licensing model. Brainchip believe that Akida is well made for this, and it's a real opportunity to expand and scale into this global market. And so yes, they will continue to sell their chips, but as their customers look to invest at scale into Akida, they're recommending that they take IP licensing agreements out. And obviously this is going to be fascinating to see how these play out and how these agreements come to market over the next years. In terms of 2021 achievements, the most recent one that a lot of investors are remembering is the IP licensing agreement that was signed with Megachips. Megachips is a big Japanese company. They've got a big global customer base as well. And this builds on top of the recent IP licensing agreement at the back end of 2020 with Renesas. The new CEO was finally appointed, Sean Hare. He's got a range of experience, particularly located within Silicon Valley and the US tech scene, but there's huge hopes about what he will be bringing to the new commercialization strategy for Brainchip moving forward. As we discussed earlier, AKD 1000 have been produced and tested, and in fact the tests were actually better than the initial samples, which is of course a big tick in validation of what the Brainchip team have been able to achieve. The Akida development kits are now available. They've been able to be purchased by enterprises, by potential customers, by people who want to get them hands on it. And once they've got their hands on it, obviously they can prototype things, they can test Akida within their own environment and see if there is a possibility that Akida could provide a bit of a benefit for their products that they're looking to bring to market, which obviously, if successful, would flow through to other commercial agreements. And I think that's interesting to note as well about Brainchip's progression was they're transitioning from research and development to a commercially focused entity throughout 2021, and we saw this transition, but we also saw it in terms of more investor roadshows, more webinars, an increased web presence and a social presence, and they've gone out from really being in quite a stealth mode and the R&D development stage of their technology to really spreading the focus and the opportunity that Akida brings globally. We've talked about how Brainchip are really in the making of a market stage as well. Of course, neuromorphic processing at the edge, leveraging spiking neural networks is different to the incumbent ways that AI processing is currently done. And so they need to make this market and show to the broader world why Akida could serve as a technological solution in comparison to their incumbent technologies that they're leveraging at the moment. And Brainchip have really focused on expanding their scale and their reach. And this is something that they're likely to continue to double down on moving forward. In terms of share price performance for ASX BRM, share price was up by over 50% for the year to date. This year was definitely about the focus on R&D, finalising that, and really moving towards this commercial development now. It does look like the building blocks are in place. Brainchip's traded in around that $1 billion market cap space for the better part of the year. It's been moving in and around that. But now as commercial agreements have the ability to start to flow through and potentially revenue will come as a result of that over the next quarters with some licensing agreements or some more insights surrounding those, I think investors will be watching to see what ASX BRN has in store in the year up ahead. And in terms of some of the focuses for BRM, firstly, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. As you know, we make daily videos each and every day, so if you're new here, welcome. If you haven't yet, make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on. You won't miss any of our daily episodes. In terms of the focus, additional commercial agreements always catch the eye of investors. We have talked about it previously that with the top of class technology and currently the world's only commercially available neuromorphic processing chip, it looks like it is a matter of when and not if more commercial agreements will come to market, and the Megachips deal really did indicate that. But investors, particularly those sitting on the outside waiting for some more validation, they like to wait to see if commercial agreements will come to market. So that's what eyes will be on into 2022. We know there's been the early access program. We know there's been a range of partnerships that are in discussions, and so it'll be interesting to see if they do flow through to market. Further R&D as well, Brainchip have this lead ahead of other competitors that are trying to enter the space, but they're not resting on their laurels. AKD 1000 is not the only thing they're developing. They're working on 2000 and aspirationally looking forward to 3000, potentially AKD 500 as well, and there's sure to be more innovations as well in terms of that technology front. Of course, it'll be interesting to see if Akida potentially is in the first products for Renesas or Megachips or any other agreements that come to market. And we discussed it earlier, it's that global rollout of technology with increased awareness and the scale, not only for the scale for Akida, but also showing to potential product users the benefit that Akida can provide to them. We know that Akida has an almost universal use case in terms of the flexibility of the technology. And as the Vice President of Global Sales and Marketing, Rob Tolson, said with one of the recent reports, they're very excited to engage with current and future potential customers, and the feedback they've received has been entirely positive, with the demand for information about the product insatiable. It's a growing market. It's a technology that has the ability to continue to scale with the market moving forward. It's going to be fascinating to see how it goes. 2021 was a year for the record books across many different sectors and companies. It truly was a year unlike any other, and I'm sure one that will look back with fond memories. But just on the same token, I'm really eager to see what 2022 has in store, not only for these companies, for many different companies, as the technological adoption continues to pick up pace, as this EV adoption continues to grow, as we move towards a decarbonised society, and as we continue to see innovation at the core. It's going to be an exciting year. We'll be here making videos each and every day, unpacking them all. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a great start to 2022. For now, stay well and happy investing.